We are celebrating Pride with a limited edition t-shirt drop featuring 3 amazing designers from our community and the LGBTQIA+ community. All 3 of the shirts say "Be Good" on them in different designs, and all of the proceeds will be split between the artist and the Okra Project. The Okra Project provides mutual aid to Black, trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. You can head to our website, goodtype.us/pride, to take a look and buy your favorite tee. We hope to see you out and about rocking these designs. They are so beautiful, and we are honored to create this collection with some artists from our community. Each design is a reflection of celebration, pride, and joy, and they are so beautiful. We can't wait for you to get your hands on them. Head over to our site to learn more about the artists and grab your design today.
Hi, I'm Dan Polyak, a graphic artist from Chicago. I'm a Cancer, and I don't like how underappreciated graphic artists are.
Yeah. Boom.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That was like related. I thought you were going to be like, I don't like pickles or something.
What we said last time was
people who mistreat animals, but that's
that's
heavy.
A great one as well. Yeah, no, it just is. Right out the gate.
Well, now we're there. Are you a vegan? That's where I thought you were going.
I like to practice vegan qualities, although it is not fully implemented in my daily life.
Okay, so do you like a deep dish pizza?
I'm from Chicago, so I have to. It's like
I know, that's what
my blood type is marinara sauce.
I was going to ask you about that, though, because when I went to Chicago, the one time I've been to Chicago, people were like, deep dish isn't necessarily a thing that the locals have. So give us the true behind the scenes.
I'm like, let me give you a little ASMR moment. But so
talk to us about deep dish.
We're talking about the Chicago Pizza. So the Chicago Pizza Wars, essentially deep dish, we're known for that really thick, it's like the crust, the really thick layers of cheese, and then the sauce on top. And that's kind of like what I feel like a lot of people's image of Chicago pizza is, that really gooey, just goopy, cheesy pizza. That, unfortunately, is more of the tourist pizza. That's kind of what you take, like, your cousins who are visiting from Nebraska, you take them to, like, Giordano's to go get the thick pizza. Okay. Real, true Chicagoans know it's like the tavern-style thin crust. It is actually more so like a cracker, and it's very thin layer of sauce, a little bit of cheese, and then some giardiniera to spice it up. But yeah, it's actually like the polar opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so is deep dish pizza like a rarity for you to have then?
I think it's definitely one of my comfort meals. If I'm a little stressed, I'll be like, you know what, girl, you deserve this piece of deep dish pizza. Like, the carbs, the cheese, all that fun stuff. I'm a sausage, green pepper, onion kind of person on my pizza. But normally my partner and I, we just want, like, Friday night order pizza and a salad. It's a nice little thin crust so that you're not eating too much carbs and cheese.
I feel like deep dish is actually a lasagna. Like,
it's just like a bread forward. Yeah, casserole. That's a good comparison.
Also, I'm just so glad that we're getting the important stuff out of the way at the beginning, because at the end of the episode, we usually do ask people how they like their pizza, just because every designer seems to have a thing with pizza. Like, they feel really closely connected to it. I don't know if this is every industry, but I feel like designers specifically have like a thing for pizza. But I'm glad we got this out of the way.
Really I feel like it's possibly because we all like how things look, and different toppings make the pizza look different. There's different types of pizzas. You could really get crazy and throw some pineapple and ham on it to, like, throw some people off.
Go wild.
You know, just the classic pepperoni.
That's an interesting take on it. Yeah.
Thank you for letting us know the true behind the scenes pizza situation that's going on in Chicago.
Yes, I'm glad to be the spokesperson on Pizzagate here in the Windy City.
Let's talk about design things. So now that we know that you don't like when designers are underrepresented and that you don't like when animals are mistreated, what are some things that you do like, and how would you describe yourself and what you do as a designer?
I really like design that is intentional. I think that is a word that I always use when talking to my friends who maybe don't understand graphic design, is like, I really like design that is intentional and has a point of view. It might not necessarily be my favorite go-to style, but I always feel like as long as you can tell that there's some thoughts, some research, some sort of like homage to the past or the future of design, there has to be an intention and a point of view. I think that those are my favorite things when I look at graphic design that isn't my own or that I personally enjoy or find reference in. Personally, I like bold, impactful, loud graphic design. I was a child of the MTV, Nickelodeon era, the 90s with making the
golden
video.
years.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, being able to experience TRL, and I know that like those aren't graphic design necessarily, but seeing really strong developed aesthetics as a kid was able to help me then later on in life be like, okay, I need to really formulate this aesthetic. This can't just be like this half-assed design that is put out. Because it's funny, I was doing research before we hopped on this Zoom, and there's even shows with like Date My Mom or Next or Singled Out.
Oh my God, Next.
Like really throw back to this early 2000s era of MTV, but all of those shows really had distinct design aesthetics, like really had their own color aesthetics, their own vibe, whether it be really hyper designed or a little more flirty or playing on gender. Yeah, I think MTV and Nickelodeon were like really big references for me. And so I think the internet era really, I think you guys can probably attest to this. Like we grew up in a world where we were consumed by TV, magazines, but also the growth of the internet, pop culture.
Those glittery MySpace graphics.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because one of the questions on the prompt was like, tell us your story. And so I was really thinking about like, how did I begin? I did really start graphic design seriously with pop punk bands. But when I think about before then, it was like creating like Zanga and LiveJournal
100%.
layouts and MySpace.
Oh my gosh.
Coding. Like I taught myself
MySpace.
Coding through those. Like I didn't have formal training. And so, you know, it was kind of like, let me reach out to bands I like and see if they would give me the opportunity to work with them. And yeah, kind of just was lucky to be consumed by all of these forms of media.
Yeah, I can 100% see all of that in your work, and I absolutely love it. You've taken that and modernized it and owned it, and it's so, so fun.
Oh,
I want to talk more about that specific path of working with musicians. But before that, I just want to go back to something you said about intention, because we have been judges for the TDC lettering competition, specifically for lettering submissions. And with each submission, first of all, we're like blown away by the talent. But with each submission, there's like a little blurb about what the project is. And there's some design that we see first. We see the image first and we're like, oh, that's nice. And then we read the intention behind it and we're like, holy cow, that is so cool. That's so clever. And I do feel like that's something that clients often don't understand. And if you're seeing something in like a vacuum, you really can't appreciate design as a whole. And I think it becomes our job as designers to find ways to be really intentional about how people perceive it. And it's not just, wow, the kerning is really beautiful. It's like, yes. Oh, I really see, like, even with the, what is it? The FedEx logo has like the arrow and all these little things. Those are really intentional choices that not everyone's going to notice. And then when they do, they're like, oh, my mind is blown. I just wanted to underline, highlight that.
It's funny you bring up that FedEx logo because I literally was running an errand the other day. And I think that's something that we all kind of learned pretty early in our graphic design careers. Is like, look at that shift of the positive and negative space in that logo. Yeah. But I actually was just walking by a FedEx truck and noticed the arrow before I noticed the logo this time. And was like, it's weird when you have that mental shift and can notice these things. But yeah, I mean, even just up into being a nerd and like pointing out Helvetica when I'm out in public with my friends and they're like, I would have never known that's Helvetica.
Yeah.
You're like, why do you have this?
It's like our superpower that people are entertained by the first time we do it. And then they're like, okay, shut them up. Somebody shut them up.
Oh, cool. You recognize Futura again.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm so impressed.
You don't get it. It comes in many forms.
We can't help ourselves.
It does. The other thing I wanted to mention about the like MTV era is one, I think because we're part of that generation, it means that we grew up with the internet. So we understand how powerful it is and we've seen it shift. And so we like long for the days where there wasn't the pressure associated with it, but we also really appreciate how far it's come. And so it's like this balancing act. But you said making the video, and I might have shared this before, but making the video for me was like, somehow that's going to be my job. I would close my eyes and I would like picture myself being an art director directing music videos. However, most of the time it was just like dancing because I was like, I'm also going to be a cool hip hop dancer, which I'm not. I'm fine. Like I keep a beat, but like not great. And specifically Jennifer Lopez, Waiting for Tonight. I don't know.
Oh, she's having a moment right now too.
That was the one with all the lasers, right?
Yes, it was
yes, the green lasers, totally.
Like just the
very
fact
like jungle,
that
the smoke.
Yes, like
so simple but effective.
Yes, and the fact that people do, like, I don't even think I realized that was a job. I was just like, that's how I see things in my head.
It's so funny because I had the same exact experience, but with America's Next Top Model. And what was there, like Miss J and Mr. J, right?
The J's,
and Mr. J was the art director, right? And so as soon as he was like art directing these shoots where they were like in pools of water and they were acting like jungle animals, I was like,
from like
what
the eyes
is
up.
this? Wait, yes, and it was just their. I was like I want to do this job, not the modeling, the art directing.
When you said this, I immediately was like, did Katie want to be a runway model? And I was like, in my head trying to picture you. And
she's like, I wanted to pump the runway.
This cannot be the same person.
That was never on the table. That was never on the table.
Also, my parents did block MTV. So like we did not have, I think I saw making the video one time. And then my parents were like, this, absolutely not. They were like, you are not watching The Real World. And so I don't even know how that stuck in my brain.
Bless my mom's heart.
Yeah.
She was busy at work. Had 3 kids at home.
Yes.
My brother and I were like, let's consume it all. WWF.
Yeah.
Like, it was like really just like everything.
I was just out of view. I don't think they paid attention or like knew that those were shows. But that was where my love for reality TV was blossoming. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is a moment in history that is like pivotal. And I have to be here for this. Yeah.
Because you think about like today's generation, as old person as that sounds, but it's like, what is there like behind the scenes of a production TV show that actually shows you the realistic experience of making a music video? Because like you said, that too was like a dream of mine. And like, how do I get there? And I remember even being in college for my BFA being like, well, yeah, it's for graphic design, but I still want to do art direction and music videos and yada, yada, yada. Eventually in my career, later on the line, the opportunity presented itself and like definitely had those pinch me moments. But thinking back, I'm like, did I even know that would be a possibility had I not seen it for myself on MTV?
Right.
Is that a job for people nowadays?
Shout out to Carson Daly.
Yeah. Shout out to MTV for making all our dreams realized. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Nickelodeon, that documentary that came out.
I know. I've been seeing the TikToks coming out about like Amanda Bynes and what she had to go through and like the weird sexual innuendos and stuff. Ugh.
Even the like, subtlety of like their logo being a foot.
What's his face? The creator was like really into feet, right?
Yeah. And so like,
what the heck?
I won't look at that foot the same way ever again, but it's just like, damn.
This is
design,
unearthing some stuff. So yeah, like what subtleties, like we're talking about with the FedEx logo, what did they do to us?
What other things are programmed in our brains? I mean, the Disney D will never look like a D to me. I don't care.
Oh, I gotta Google it right now.
The D in the Disney logo, I just can never see.
Oh yeah, it's like a G.
Yeah, it looks more like a backwards G to me, and I feel like my eye for the longest time could never perceive.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I always just skip over it and I just go, nope, and then read the rest of it.
Nope.
Come on, Isney.
Yeah, what the heck? Okay, so you started out, you were in college and at the same time doing work for some pretty cool bands. So how did that come about, and tell us about that time?
This was like my era of being a fanboy and really graduating from MTV and all of that. And so I graduated from like Britney and Christina and I found Avril Lavigne. And from that point on, I was like alternative down, guitar, grunge, really then living in Chicago kind of found, it's crazy how it evolved from like Avril Lavigne to Fall Out Boy. But Fall Out Boy, this was before they were really like a bigger band. And
I don't think it sounds crazy at all.
Yeah, I guess the genres are similar.
I'm tracking, yeah.
Okay, cool. So like Avril Lavigne, My Chemical Romance, Green Day, Fall Out Boy. So really just fell into the world of pop punk music. I think it was less heavy. It was a little more poppy. So it was a little bit more of the Avril Lavigne side coming a little bit back. And yeah, got to kind of just really jump into the local music scene and wait in line for hours at concerts to see bands. And from there, it was like, I went to see a Fall Out Boy show and I remember it was Panic at the Disco's first show in Chicago. And then from there, it was like, let me pay attention to this label Fueled by Ramen. And so from that point on, it was like Academy Is, who was local, The Hush Sound, Paramore, Cobra Starship. So I would start just seeing these bands waiting in line, Gym Class Heroes, just kind of like you'd meet the bands by being in line all day. They'd be there for their sound check and you'd be like, can't wait to see you in 4 hours. So would someone like develop relationships in terms of just familiarity of seeing them over time? And there'd be times where I was like, oh, I designed this MySpace layout for you, or a T-Mobile Sidekick layout was actually the first thing that I had done that got noticed by a pop punk band, Cobra Starship. And so it was just like my T-Mobile Sidekick, and it was like embarrassing. I have the logo tattooed on me, this little spaceship icon.
Oh, wow.
And so that was kind of the icon that moved around on the screen. And the singer, Gabe, was like, this is really cool. Can you send it to us? And from that point on, every time I saw him, he kind of like was really encouraging in me being a graphic designer, being like, keep up what you're doing. Your work is great. Send me things you make. From there, kind of like started to send my designs to their label, and I was able to start working with them and some other bands. And they kind of, on the label, but also other merch companies just reached out to me to work with them. So I was able to work with Taking Back Sunday on some designs. That was really cool. But yeah, then from that point on, still in college, but was one of the few people in my undergrad that was really kind of practicing graphic design outside of school, which was really weird to me because I felt like, well, this is what I want to do. I'm going to immerse myself in this. It was kind of foreign to me that other people weren't doing that. I remember in my portfolio class we had to take to graduate. I went to Columbia College here in Chicago. As a graphic designer, you had to take a portfolio review class. And in that class, they were like, how many of you have done an internship? Literally me and one other person raised our hands. And I had been doing internships since my sophomore year. So it was kind of just, I had a body of work that wasn't just college work, because it's kind of like, you can show this to people, be like, this is my student work. It hasn't been used in real life. So I felt like because I had so much real life work that was used in production, I was able to be taken a little bit more seriously. And
yeah,
I mean, you just so casually were like, I went to Columbia in Chicago. Like, that's a really good school.
Thank you.
And to be able to say, like, you were working on these things outside, I feel like every single portfolio that was submitted to the companies we were trying to get internships with, it was like, you have a beer label or a wine label, you have a fake editorial spread. They're looking for the
have your menu for a restaurant. Right. So
you literally innately stood out because you were doing something that was, and it sounds like it was just your calling. You knew what you wanted to do, and how amazing that you felt that from so early on, that you were like, I'm going to pursue this, even though I'm in school for it. Like, I'm going to just do it. That's amazing.
Yeah, because I definitely wasn't trying to be teacher's pet about it. I wasn't like actively in class, like, I'm in all these internships. It was just
because you were, that was outside of school.
Totally. I needed to like kill my time and like wanting to be a serious designer. I think having worked with bands in the music industry, I was like, okay, well, I know I have to be proactive about this because, like, yes, work has come to me, but I'm still 18 to 21. So yeah, just kind of like doing all that and being a little bit more proactive and just really immersing myself in design. I was really, really lucky that my mom, while I was in school, she didn't make me get a part-time job. I lived at home. She was pretty much just like, if you stay at home, I'll help pay for your school, because I grew up in a really close Chicago family. So of course she didn't want me to leave. And being the youngest of three, I would also have been the first to have flown the coop. So I think she gave me a really nice setup for my future. I still have student loan debt, but it's not as much as like a lot of people I know. And I just didn't have those pressures of having to do other things outside of school. So I was able to do internships and like kind of search for freelance work. From there, I got an internship at a venue here, the Metro Smart Bar, which is, I think, like the oldest independent venue in the Midwest. But yeah, really cool opportunity to work with bands and musicians of all calibers who were like up and coming to like historic names like the Foo Fighters and Jane's Addiction. I mean, I was able to work with Chance the Rapper right before he blew up. Just like a lot of cool musicians played this club. I started as an intern and worked my way up to art director over like 9 years. So it was a really cool experience. I got to have a lot of cool work with working with festivals like Lollapalooza every year, announcing the secret shows, things like that. Also had the opportunity to work with Fall Out Boy again. So just really cool things that kind of became full circle for me. It really happened at Metro. I feel like I was really able to develop myself as a designer with my own aesthetic. The owner of the club was actually the person who introduced Kurt Cobain to Courtney Love and was like really good friends with Keith Haring. So like I got to just sit across from this person who was really well-rounded in both art, but also music and business. So I got to learn a lot from him. Is Joe Shanahan. He's still working at the club. Yeah, so I felt just really lucky, and he gave me a lot of opportunity to kind of just spread my wings and do my own thing there. I didn't have to follow any sort of aesthetic. I kind of got to brand residencies. I got to just do my own thing. So it was really a lot of fun trial and error, a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of ups and downs. I definitely maybe got us potentially sued as an intern accidentally. It was an accident. I was sent a promo photo that was not approved, but that happens. You live, you learn. I literally got to my desk with a 20-page printout on copyright law when I got there.
Oh, fun little lesson for
you.
you.
I was like, I'm still at school. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like a really cool moment. Graduated school and was still the art director there. And from there, just kind of was like longing to find this community at large that really responded to me, because similar to the graphic design community, which I'm sure you guys can attest to, the music community is also very just cisgender white male dominated. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to feel like a part of a community there. You can only hear so many "that's what she said" jokes before you're this is great, but so
give me more of them. Keep them coming.
I was like, actually, for me, that's what he said, but okay, we can do this. But so yeah, just really was looking for a community outside of that. Luckily, at this time, a lot of my friends were like just straight girls, because that's really who I responded well to as a gay man. That's who I think our biggest allies are. Those became like my homies, but there was some lack of similar experiences. I just kind of needed to find a more queer community that I had similar experiences to, because there was only so many weekends where we could go to like bars in Wrigleyville, which is the baseball area where it's like straight bros and all that. So found this queer community, and Chicago at that point in time was actually going through this really interesting drag renaissance. I really feel like in retrospect, perfect time, perfect place, because I didn't really know that this was a community I wanted to just be a part of, and kind of like met these drag queens here. And at first was like, okay, cool, drag queens, love the way they lip sync. It's amazing. But then it was like, they're such visual artists, but don't know how to brand themselves. So you kind of start following them on Instagram and saw that the aesthetic maybe wasn't as tight as it could be. And not that they weren't amazing artists, just kind of was one of those things where I think we were getting our footing at the time. And the drag artists I was talking about were like Kimchi, Pearl, Shea Coulee, Trixie Mattel, Kimora Hall, like some really iconic queens who've been on Drag Race. Valentine Adams, who hasn't been on Drag Race yet, but should be. So some really iconic queens. At the time, they were on the precipice of becoming iconic. And so I kind of saw this opportunity when Trixie and Pearl got on their season. This was like right after their season I met everybody. So I kind of knew Kim, Shay, and a couple other people, and was just like, hey, I would love to work with you guys doing graphic design. I do website design as well, and I know that you guys are kind of new to this world, but I just want to contribute creatively. Like, I wasn't necessarily even asking for money or anything. It's just kind of, I see this need, we're all friends, let's collaborate together. And yeah, I just was really, people say that you shouldn't say you were lucky, that it's just your destiny. So I do try to just accept that this was my destiny as well. But yeah, just really right place, right time. And from there, it's kind of like a snowball effect with working with all of these amazing drag artists from Drag Race. And yeah.
So since you got in on this precipice moment, was there anybody else doing graphic design in this space that you knew of, or were you like kind of inventing the model?
Oh my God, when you say it, like I'm like, for the people who aren't on camera, I'm like blushing right now. I guess I never thought about it that way. I think I saw quote unquote fan art. There was this creative here from Chicago as well named Chad Sell. He's an illustrator. He now illustrates children's and like teens books, amazing artist, but he would do weekly fan art. Each piece was so different, but so like some were Art Deco, some were just like modern illustrations, some were really a play on negative space, some had typography in them. So he really just based on like the queen's outfit that week could develop this whole color scheme and aesthetic. And I think that really showed me that I could do that with typography and graphic design. And yeah, I don't really think there was like a graphic designer per se at the time. Yeah, I guess kind of like it started for me around season 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race, because it's not a secret or anything, but Shea Coulee is my partner as well. So
I didn't know. That's
we,
amazing.
yeah,
I saw that. That's so cool.
We had been working together creatively before that. This was kind of before we were also seriously together, but we worked on a couple projects, one being like a short kind of like music video, 16-minute video that we like created together. Yeah, it was really cool. It was like we raised money on GoFundMe and got like $10K to do this kind of like, I guess, art house, Chicago underground house music film called Lipstick City that I was a co-producer on and also did the editing. But we worked together, and so Shay, just having come back from Drag Race and having all these new drag sisters that also really needed help with branding and graphic design. And I think that it also could be a predatory space for that, for a lot of those girls with managers and agents and all those things. So knowing that like this is someone's partner or someone who at least your friend has experience with, who isn't going to burn you, who will give you good work. I was very lucky to work with Valentina, Aja, Farah, a lot of the really heavy hitters from that season, Trinity. That kind of was really what started me into the drag design branding world, kind of the need for like branding merch. The thing that's actually funny now that I'm saying it, because when you look back at Drag Race, season 9 was the first season to be on VH1, and each drag queen was truly like had their own unique developed aesthetic. If you look at their promo photo, each girl has their own color, and it's truly like, this is me dominating my own aesthetic in this color scheme. So I think for me, having so many girls that were so firm in their aesthetic and their point of view and their intention was able to then bring that back into graphic design, because Valentina is a Latin queen. So you put some like Latin flair into the design, or Farah, who's a little bit more like Farrah Fawcett, 70s, 80s. You kind of go vintage, hand-drawn signature. Shay is more like 80s, 90s, 2000s supermodel. So you want current, bold, and impactful. So being able to brand these girls was also a really cool opportunity for me.
I have a follow-up. First of all, when was this? What year are we talking? Because I think this was like beginning Instagram. Is that right?
This was like 2017, I would say.
Okay, so Instagram's like developed, but it's not what it is today.
No, not yet. Not yet. I would say this is probably around low-key peak Instagram engagement before the algorithm turned on us.
And were you using Instagram like
not
for
as
your
well
design
as
work?
I should have been. You know what I mean? Hindsight is 50-50, 20-20. I don't know. Whatever they say about hindsight.
2020, yeah.
But I was, in the sense, like, I would promote my work for the most part. I wasn't, like, going ham, being like, hire me for branding. I would just, like, post the projects I was working on. I guess I left a big chunk out of the story. Is that between 2017 and 2018, I left working at Metro Smart Bar full-time to then start working with Shay and other drag queens full-time. So I essentially left to be a full-time freelance artist at this point. So there was a little bit more time for me to now promote myself on Instagram. I mean, I would like post pictures of me and the girls hanging out too, but that was just because I was also able to just like hang out with them at gigs, which is a real opportunity.
Well,
but
I wanted to ask that because I feel like now it's harder to find. I think people struggle more to find their community. And you were able to like find your community literally in person by meeting them in person. Yeah. That's why I wanted the context about when this was, because I wanted advice for people who are like, I want to find my people because I'm really passionate about, let's say they say walking dogs or petting dogs or whatever, and design.
I'm really passionate about petting dogs. I fall into that category.
Same.
Yeah. It's harder now to find, especially post-pandemic, to find those people out and about. Back in the day, we were doing more things in real life and collaborating in real life and doing things purely because we were excited about them, not because we had to like perform online. And so you had that like, and so do you have any advice for people, especially in the queer space, how to find other people like you? Because feeling alone is like the last thing we want someone to do, especially in the design community.
Totally.
Like, that could be so isolating.
You know, it's interesting because I think I definitely do get asked that a lot, like at DMs from like queer designers being like, how did you get your start? How can I do what you did? And honestly, like, I really just immersed myself in the community. I was lucky to live near a bunch of the bars where the girls were performing, and like Thursday through Sunday, while it probably wasn't good for my mental health or my bank account, I was hanging out with them, just really like seeing what was missing. Not that I was like there to fill a gap. Graphic design is all around us. Every moment we're taking in graphic design. everything is intentionally done or is not intentionally done, whether it's a menu or something like that. So even being in like a gay club and seeing a terribly designed flyer, gay people are so critical that they're like, oh girl, this is disgusting. Look at that font. So it's just like, if you could do better, do it yourself. Truly reach out to your friends that work in bars and be like, hey, like, I don't know what your budget is, but I'd love to get in here and redesign a flyer. And like, there were so many years where I didn't get paid to do design. And I'm not saying that like we should be doing work for free, because I think we've all learned that lesson to not do work for free. But I think if it's something you're passionate about, like putting in the time is not considered free work. It's really just like, I'm doing this because I want to learn. I want to challenge myself. I want to maybe give myself an opportunity that wasn't there. I want to create a space for myself that wasn't carved out before. Like, yes, we are all of value as artists, but also like sometimes you have to peacock and flaunt that value and show people why you're valuable, because we're all designers with egos. We're all valuable. You know what I mean? Like, we're all
there's
kind of like,
also
I'm valuable too.
a time and space in your career for that too. I think when you're collabing with other people that are also in that time and space, it doesn't feel like one is preying on the other. It feels like you're both lifting each other up. Whereas like if it's an imbalance of somebody's in the place to pay somebody else and they don't, then that's not okay.
Yeah. And like, you know, it's crazy to even think about it in terms of like Instagram following, but some of these girls, when I started working with them, had like less than 15,000 followers. That's a big hump in itself as a local drag queen, but like Drag Race girls could get way past 1 million. So I was lucky that I was working with people before and that they saw that I was here, regardless of how many followers they had. I was here with them, putting in the time and effort, even if no one was going to see it. But when they blew up, they remembered how loyal I was to them and like brought me with them. And I think that that's something that like queer people we're really good at doing, is uplifting our community, bringing us with us. For me, it's not competitive. It's collaborative. It's so many people are like scared to collaborate or work with each other because they feel that they're taking an opportunity away from themselves. But it's just like, you never know what this collaboration will lead to. We all are better when we do it together. As a graphic designer, if we're all charging low ass rates, we're all going to get low ass rates. So let's all raise our rates a little bit, because I found out what a graphic designer who I really love, who I followed for a long time, who's worked in the music industry, what they make for like a 1 month retainer. And it's just like, whatever this artist, I don't want to like get too specific because I don't want to put anybody on blast. Whatever they did for this pop star, they made X amount of money, a couple thousand, over 10K, which for a retainer is pretty sweet. And I'm over here like, damn, I'm scared to charge X amount of money for a project. And this person, it's a fine art. Like, you really have to test things yourself and like learn what people respond to with work and pricing. And I saw the Zoom that you guys just had yesterday about pricing. I didn't watch it yet. I'm going to go back, but even the guide you were like previewed, showing the caliber of client you're working with, local versus large name, that's a difference in how much you can charge. And someone's like, well, I worked with this local company and I only charge this. So if I'm doing the same type of project, I'm scared to charge that. And it's like, well, no, if you're working with a pop star, this is going to be taken in by so many more thousands, if not millions of people. Like, you graphic designers, I feel like, are the unsung heroes. A lot of times, a lot of these brands, these artists, these musicians, whether it's a drag queen, a pop star, it could be like any sort of visual artist. We're in the trenches working to create those things. And so few times are the graphic designers credited on posts. Are they given shout outs? And not that we need shout outs because we're being paid for our time, but I think that those things are important, because otherwise it's just like, oh, cool, another graphic designer did that. And it's like, I don't know. I think we need a little more praise for what we do.
I love that. We talked about the proportional pricing value recently, and it's so true. Like, the same service, we can offer the same service to two different people, but if we're offering it to like a local, someone who's just going to bars, singing, just doing it for passion, versus Britney Spears, like, it might be the same service, but the value, the reach is different, and it's going to be way different in pricing. And that's why people get so, I feel like, confused and hung up, which I get it, on pricing, because it's like not a one size fits all. And there's so many nuances that go into it. But yeah, either way, at the end of the day, the designer is usually like not associated with the final outcome. Like no one's like, oh my God, whoever did this album cover. They're just like, oh, I love Taylor's album cover.
Literally,
like,
oh my God, Lady Gaga slayed that cover.
Right, yeah.
But look at the typography.
Yeah, Taylor was just handed 3 options. I was like, that one.
She's like, I love this photo. Right. That photo's great. Yeah, no, it is really interesting when you think about things like that. And I just lost my train of thought. What were we?
That's all right. It happens to us 8 times an episode at least.
Oh, I'm sure. I remember. It's that meme where it's like, client, what's your rate? Me, what's your budget? Because like, I feel like no one ever wants to throw it out there first, because once you like really start throwing numbers out there,
the weaker position, you know?
Totally. And yeah, I don't know. It's just so weird because even being asked like, can you provide me a rate sheet? I'm just like, well, that is so loaded in itself. Like, what are you looking for? A flat 2D logo is different than some of my more like fleshed out stylized logos. And then like, what is the usage for this? So it's just like always a blessing and a curse being a freelancer.
Well, I love that transparency and community is at the center of what you do. And I think it's such a good reminder to go like back to your question, Ilana, about how people can find their people. I think just like paying attention to the spaces that you're drawn to and where the people that you do know that are like you hang out, and then paying attention to how you can incorporate design into that world, that space for those people in different ways, that can just lead you to some really authentic places in your career, which you've done super well. But I have to, as the Real Housewives fan that I am, ask you about Erica Jane.
Oh, my problematic queen.
Oh, I was really excited to see, you know, some of these names on your portfolio, but Erica Jane is just like in a little world of her own. I was really excited when I saw that your monogram logo that you did for her was in the last episode. So tell us some about how this like came about. If you can share about like what the process was like with her, that would be so interesting, especially to me.
I would love to. So this is actually a great lesson for other graphic designers, artists, typographers to learn. There is power in the DMs. Truly, people are afraid to reach out to someone. I messaged her creative director, Mikey, and was like, hey, Mikey, I'm a big fan of Erica. I've worked with a bunch of Drag Race girls. I'm really trying to expand my portfolio. Would love to work with Erica in the future if there's ever an opportunity. And not right away, he replied, but I think within a couple weeks, he hit me up and said that he'd love to work together. And we kind of started initially chatting, and Erica, she's going through a rebranding phase.
In her life in general. She's going through a lot of stuff.
She said Erica 2.0. That was a really fun opportunity for me because also I'm a huge Real Housewives fan myself. I've been a fan of Erica Jane since she's joined the show. She is truly the only Real Housewife at that time that I reached out to work with. The only other one is Candace from Potomac. Candace, if you're listening, hit me back.
Hey, Candace. She's probably listening to the Typecast.
I mean, look, she looks like she could like a good typeface. So she has some opinions. But so Mikey was like, Erica doesn't necessarily have any sort of direction. She just wants something fierce, unique. She likes a lot of your work. He sent me previous things I had worked on before and was just like, similar to this, but obviously your own unique spin. So I worked on probably 2 or 3 rounds of drafts. And as any graphic designer knows, Erica went to Paris Fashion Week and was completely re-inspired and everything was scrapped.
Oh no.
So we went from these kind of custom, really sharp, edgy, almost acid graphics-y kind of designs to more clean, contemporary branding that you would see on a lot of like editorial and fashion houses. Burberry, I think, was a really big reference. Gucci, kind of just like real fashion, what is the word I'm thinking of? I guess those big fashion houses. I also really like simplicity. It's actually not something I get to show a lot in my work because drag queens and musicians really like bold in your face.
Yeah, they don't
graphics.
Typically go for minimalism.
No, no, not usually. They love to make the brights brighter and the logos bigger. But with Erica,
make it pop. Make it pop.
And with Erica, I was really able to draw back and kind of just like create. I mean, E&J is a fun group to work with. So just really went back to basics. And Columbia, they taught us a lot of Swiss design. So I was really able to just go back to the roots of Swiss design and kind of modernize it, throw in some more like curves so it wasn't so edgy and pointy, and she really liked it, slapped a gold stylization on it to make it look really luxe and unique. And it's crazy because I finished that project last January.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was part of the branding and cover art that I just posted recently too.
Yeah, that
But
must
it
have been
kind
hard to
of,
sit on.
girl, oh my God. I literally, and the best part was one of my 2023 goals was work with a real housewife. And it happened like 8 days into the year. But
Freaking
then I was just
manifested
like,
that.
oh, guess I can't tell anyone about it.
No.
So my close friends, they heard it here first on Instagram and Twitter. I was like, I'm working with Erica Jane. But yeah, kind of had to keep it a secret for a while. And then she announced the Vegas residency.
Mm-hmm.
But that the logo wasn't necessarily prominent. It was on like the step and repeat at the announcement. But once the new season started airing, yeah, I didn't even know it was on the season until Mikey kind of gave me a heads up, and I got to see it in like a preview, and that was really surreal. Seeing a piece of my work on a show that wasn't drag race related or drag related, because I've had a couple things on Drag Race, which was still really cool, but I also felt like I had a little bit of an in there.
Mm-hmm.
Not to take that away from myself, but it was one of those things that I kind of earlier in the episode did say, like, you know, right time, right place. This was something that like really I kind of found for myself, and it was on TV, and that was just a really cool moment. I know that people may feel however they want about Erica, but her and Mikey were like really great to work with. They were really sweet. And yeah, I just really loved the opportunity. I love to keep working with her too. So yeah.
Well, what you've done for Shea Coulee too, and lots of the Drag Race gals is super cool because you've gone really beyond the basics when people think of like branding. It's really more about crafting like a whole vibe that kind of goes through everything that they do. And you're over here taking photos 1 second, and you're like art directing a set the next, and you're doing their logo and merch. And so you're just hitting on all these different fronts. And it kind of reminded me of this like quote from Lana Del Rey where she was like, I want my whole life to be a work of art. And I just felt like like you do a really good job of doing that. So can you speak a little bit to that approach and kind of how you've developed this positioning as a designer?
Yeah, obviously going back to like all those references I threw out earlier growing up, like
being
a graphic designer was truly like my passion when I first started getting into art, because I'm not a tactile artist. I can't paint, I can't draw. I've literally never done drag because I would be one of those busted queens. So like just like me and my hands were good with a mouse and details. I'm very detail oriented. So I guess I just saw things and had opportunities presented to me that I was kind of like, sure, I guess I'll learn to do this. Mentioning Lipstick City earlier, I had never helped produce a short film. I had never done video. I had never opened Premiere to do video editing. And I edited this entire 16-minute short film that like was about the Chicago drag community as a whole. And before Shea was on Drag Race, one of the biggest local drag names in the country, who is like always rumored to be on the show. And Lipstick City was kind of done as a way to show Drag Race, like, you want me. So this project was like, oh, you didn't cast me last season? Well, you're definitely going to cast me this one. So like to be on a project with such a well thought out artist, because I can't take credit for Shea's vision. Shea themselves is also just like a visionary when it comes to drag, music, looks. Through me, I feel like they've learned more about graphic design. So just like both of us are very similar in that sense. We are very hands-on. I just felt like working with Shea, I did have like a lot of opportunity given to me, and you can either take that opportunity or let it flounder. And when I was working at Metro, I was like yearning for this community and these opportunities and work that was more me. And I literally would like get off from working until 6 p.m. at night and then come home and like work on Shea stuff from like 6:30 until 11:30 or 12. So it was like, I got my creative fuel from that. And I think that those projects really showed me that like anything outside of graphic design is possible to me. I mean, I've now been able to, like you said, art direct a music video. I've helped co-produce a music video. I've co-produced a tour. I've visually directed all the visuals on a tour that was sold out. So it's just like 2 tours that were mostly sold out. So it's just like one of those things where you have to like leave your comfort zone, because you can't imagine the great things that will happen once you do. I mean, even doing a podcast is me leaving my comfort zone. I don't know how this is going to sound or come off to other people. You don't know how it's going to be perceived, but I think leaving your comfort zone is truly something that will show you your capabilities, because to just keep this ramble going, as an artist, we're so much more than like one medium. And I'm sure you two can also attest to this. Like, we don't just work in one world. The creative obsession doesn't stop when you turn your computer off. So I think that the times I've been able to leave doing graphic design and branding, I've been very lucky and I've really enjoyed them and they've had great success. So it's just shown me like, you can do it. You know what I mean? Just like, don't sweat the small stuff.
It's such an inspiring journey. And I think for me, I had one of my biggest aha moments when I was working for several years after college. And I'm such like a rule following brain. Like that's the place I always come from initially. And so in school, they would give you constraints or they would give you deliverables and they would be like, I mean, at least in my school, they'd be like, here's this project you have to do, deliver this out of home billboard and deliver this thumbnails and do this and that and this way. And I was like, okay, I can absolutely do that. And I followed the rules to a T. But then when I got out into the real world, I was like, wait, nobody gives you deliverables?
Oh my God, right?
Nobody's like, okay, I need to do this. Can you make these things exactly? I mean, there might be some of that, but there's so much more you can do in pitching ideas or suggesting like, oh, why don't we turn this into merch over here? And like, I'll do it like this in this way that hasn't been done before. And just like opening my brain to that was such an important moment.
Yeah, to be like, I could do more than just this letterhead, this envelope with this business card that my teacher's asking me. And yeah, I just think being able to like get that experience and challenge yourself and break the mold, like in school, you know, we were always taught like, you're going to finish here, you're going to go get a job at one of these graphic design agencies where everyone is going to be touching on the files all day and nothing is just yours. And I guess I challenged myself to not do that. It's definitely not been comfortable. I think we all can attest to this. You deal with imposter syndrome, anxiety. Is this the right thing? Is this going to be my last freelance gig? You know, like all those things are normal thoughts, I think, as a freelancer. But then you think about the other side of the 9 to 5 and how uncreatively fulfilled some of these graphic designers must feel, or like how this work isn't them, or how they've worked their way nowhere at a company. So it's just give and take whatever journey you choose. But I don't know, as creatives, it's fun to break the mold and color outside the lines.
Absolutely. Let's kind of wrap up with like, who are some of your favorite queer graphic designers right now, or people just in like the art space that you really want to shout out and put a spotlight on?
Yes. Well, the first one would have to be one of my college colleagues. Hey, Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
My college colleague. Oh, yeah. Oh, you went to college with Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle and I went to undergrad together, and it's been crazy to see his journey. He's someone who his work just massively has inspired me. He inspired me to become a freelancer. He worked in the dragscape before I did, just kind of like, I think, creating fan art as well, nothing serious. But then once I started working with Shay, employed him on a video because I was just like, I loved his work so much. And so,
that's so cool. I didn't know y'all were connected. That's awesome.
Yeah. And now he started doing drag. I think their handle is Tomboy Drag if you're looking for an amazing drag queen who ties graphic design into their drag.
What a dream.
It's Drag Tomboy. We'll link it in the show notes.
Thank you. Yes, I love the way that they tie like typography into their makeup, really just like positive and negative space into things they do. Yeah, so Kyle for sure. And then another one is my design bestie, Amaya Segura. She lives in New York. Another badass who works in the music industry. We kind of became internet besties through the pandemic and just this past month met in person. So yeah, it's just kind of cool meeting someone that you kind of like bitch and complain about graphic design with. And yeah, they're both just people whose work I really love. I don't know if Amaya identifies as queer, but she's a woman of color. And I think that we need to also, shout out more women of color in graphic design.
Absolutely.
So I would say those are the first two that come to mind. But yeah, even like being a product of the Tumblr generation, seeing people like Adam J.K. and Danny Brito, those are people that like I followed and, we have mutual relationships past that. So just like seeing other people succeed from the past has been really cool that we're all kind of like doing it together, but separately.
We met Adam, or I think maybe it was just me. I can't remember if we were walking together. Yeah, you were with me. And I made such a fool of myself. And he was so generous with me. I was like, no, you're totally fine. But then we saw his his talk at Adobe Max. And to be in the room and witness him sharing so vulnerably, I am still moved from being in the room during that. It was so insane. Do
you know if this is online anywhere to check out? Or
it is. I will link it in the show notes.
It was at truly Adobe Max.
Yeah. he just laid on the floor at the end because it was so draining and I
I'm
think
sure.
cathartic. And oh man,
The
wow.
realism, just like the harsh truths with that smile that he puts in his work,
Oh.
I just loved so much. And
So
yeah,
honest.
I actually had one of those moments. I met him at DragCon, one of the first ones I did with Shay, and he came up to me and like just handed me his book. It's right behind me over here. And
Aw.
we hadn't even met in person. So I was like, I'm such a fan of yours. I don't know if you know me from Tumblr. And he was like, yeah, no, that's why I came over and brought you the book. And I was like,
Yeah,
so
no, that's
cool.
why I'm talking to you.
yeah, no. So, you know, I think like we're all also like socially awkward people at times. So
Yeah.
just to like,
We're designers. We're
let's
socially
break
awkward.
that like that glass and just be like, look, we're all socially awkward the first time we meet,
Yeah.
but we're going to complain about Comic Sans and Papyrus. So
Yeah. I literally went up to Adam and I said something I'm not going to repeat that was just really silly. And then I was like, should we hug? And he was like, yeah, let's save the world together. And I was like, okay.
and you both are probably like, we're so weird.
It was me. I was the weird one for sure. But he gave me the grace to just, it felt silly, but it also made me really happy. And yeah, that's so great. We love that. We will link to all those people in the show notes. And I'm so thankful. I know you said this was out of your comfort zone, but I can't express enough how incredibly well-spoken and inspiring, like the way you put your process and just the way you approach your work into words was really, really tangible. I feel like I digested it really easily and I feel like I'm
delicious
walking away.
Little snack for us.
It was a delicious snack, but I also am walking away with a lot of new ideas and a lot of little like sparks of inspiration, and I'm really thankful.
Thank you. Well, speaking of snacks, you guys have me over here cheesing. But yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it, and yeah, this was such a fun opportunity. It's one of those things where I'm like, did I ramble the whole time? But
No.
you know, I don't know. I think it's important for queer people, queer designers to be visible. I think that I don't even know at times how many young queer designers follow me. So just to, you know, put myself out there in hopes that other people will see this and be like, I can do this too.
I'm so appreciative.
Yes,
is there anywhere you want to point people to? Anything you've got coming up you want to share? We'll put that in the show notes too. Links to your work.
Yeah, obviously my website, danpoliak.com. I recently updated that for the first time since before the pandemic.
Yay!
Yes, that was
a portfolio website update is always a moment we need to clap for.
Especially when it's your own. Like branding yourself, terrible. My IG at Dan Polyak. But yeah, just keep an eye out. I have been producing this tour with Shea Coulee called The Love Ball. There is a date in July coming up in LA. And yeah, just really working on some fun, cool graphic projects. And yeah.
Yay, can't wait to see what else you do next and what other stuff I can fangirl over.
Thank you guys so much. Like, truly, this was such an amazing opportunity.
Oh, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, thanks for coming on the show.
Bye.
All good things.